Alright. Alright, I guess my timer ran out on my video on my explanation why I left off with trying to apologize personally to Mrs. Slott on October 14th and was turned away. The reason I won't be able to get closure is I was told to stay away from the funeral by the FBI. I had spoken with Ben on the phone, and I spoke to him twice. One of the conversations was in the morning of the funeral services for both Officer Slott and DJ. We was doing ours up north because we couldn't find anyone down here to let us use the hall at the time to do his memorial because of what had happened. The fire department in Dutton wouldn't even let us use the fire department. So we had an offer from a church at the viewing that night on Tuesday night, but that's another time. It was too late. We already made plans to move it up north. I was told to stay away from the funeral because it wouldn't be safe if I showed up at the funeral. And I told Ben that's the problem with society, is that I didn't have anything to do with this. But because I am DJ's dad, I'm not allowed to come pay my last respects for what he did. And I should have been allowed to go pay my last respects like everybody else. The whole community, police from all over the state, everywhere and everywhere, got to pay their last respects, but I was told to stay away. Now, I want someone out there to please explain to me how I'm supposed to get closure out of this whole mess when I never got to tell him I was sorry for what my boy did. So those are just a couple of tidbits for you to think about when you decide if you want to follow my story or not. When we talked at the funeral home, we were told we needed a $700 deposit, and I told the funeral home, I got $80, do you want it? And he said, no, but we got to have this deposit by noon Saturday. I said, alright, if I don't have the money, what do you do? Oh, we just put his body on hold. If I'd have had hindsight, I would have put his body on hold. According to DJ's religious beliefs, he wanted to be cremated, and that's what we did. I want to share with you my experience of getting a simple piece of information for the funeral home. They wanted DJ's social security number, so his girlfriend, Mariah, there's another story in itself. All she had to do was go home and get the clothes to dress DJ in and get DJ's social security number. Because we had to have it to the funeral home by noon on Saturday. She called up, said she couldn't find it. She was going to her mom's or whatever. So I called the number that they give me for Ottawa County Sheriff's Department if I had any questions. I got to run around. 3-4 different calls I made to try and get law enforcement to give me DJ's social security number, or just call the funeral home and give it to him. I don't need it. The funeral home needs it. You can verify my frustration, anyone can, if they talk to Nate, the dispatch for Michigan State Police out of Gaylord, on, what would Saturday's date be? The 15th. Because I had to unleash my anger on him after I was told by the medical examiner, David Starter, that I would have to wait till Monday and file for the Freedom of Information Act for DJ's Social Security number. I told them I don't know. They need it by noon tomorrow, or noon today. Well, no, is it just for, does he have any children? Yeah, he's got a daughter. Well, they don't need it, to do what they got to do. Well, you know what? I don't know who you are, and I don't know how this works, but they told me I need it, so I need it. Are you going to give it to me? Nope. Freedom of Information Act. So by the time I talked to Nate, like the third or fourth time, I was pretty hot. And I want to thank Nate because he did get the number. He understood my frustration when I had to tell him, no disrespect, but I don't think Mrs. Slott's going through this much trouble to get her husband buried. And lo and behold, within 5-10 minutes after that comment, we had made our way back to DJ's to try and find that Social Security number in his office in the paperwork. And my daughter found it on a piece of paper the same time that Nate was calling me back to let me know that they had sent the Social Security number to the funeral home. Isn't that amazing? On top of everything I've already been through. I had to go through that kind of shit just for his Social Security number. And I apologize for swearing, because I know everyone and anyone around the world is going to read this or listen to it. So I'll try to refrain from swearing. I apologize for that. On top of all that happening, DJ's mother, Vicky DeBrill, in Traverse City, who has had absolutely nothing to do with them for the last 20 years because her husband, Art DeBrill, was convicted of child abuse and plea bargained and had to spend 21 days in jail for it. And she chose Art over her kids. And we needed her signature on the cremation papers, and she refused to sign them. So it was a very good weekend trying to make preparations for DJ's viewing and stuff. And her own family had to go argue with her more than once to get her to sign the cremation papers so we could proceed with the funeral. I didn't have any money but $80. Grandma and Grandpa Berg up in Music offered to pay the $700 deposit, which I thank them for that. And we were able to proceed with the viewing and the subsequent cremation, and then we had to have the memorial up north because of everything. We couldn't do it down here. So there's apologies that I have to make, of course. I have to apologize to the community of Luther for what DJ did so many years ago. I lived a lie. I defended what my boy told me for all them years since the Luther Bank robbery. When indeed, come here baby, you can't run around like that. When indeed he did rob the bank. So, that's a tough one there on top of everything else. Because I've been through a lot dealing with the first round of the issue, and then have to have his life end up like this. So I will tell you more as time goes on. My young man baby here is getting restless, so let me put him over here a minute. I spoke with DJ once after my neck surgery, and I thought of playing in the basement with my karaoke and doing a little tidbit show kind of thing without ever leaving the house. And never materialized. I just didn't have the energy and the gumption to do it. Well, now I'm going to do it. And it's all for the benefit of the kids. And people that know me from the past know that I was a very happy, jovial, fun-loving kind of guy. And I had been reduced to a useless piece of flesh that sits on the couch, grows a garden, and takes care of a bird and a dog, and watches his wife do everything else because he can't do it. So there's a lot of things I'm gonna dedicate the rest of my time in my videos and my story, because when we used to talk about what I would name it, people that know me, I would always say through my shows like we were singing on a live radio show, and I always say broadcasting live on WMKS on the nuclear radiated 1,000,001 digital dial, etc., etc., etc. And people would go, what does this WMKS stand for? And they could always guess WM, that was Wild Man. But the KS was karaoke sing-along. Well, I told DJ when we were talking about it, I says, you know, I ought to just do I'm so sick of hearing all the crap on the news and everything else. And of course, this was way before this stuff ever developed. But it was like, I ought to do a little thing and just call it Working Man's Kind of Sorrow. WMKS. Working Man's Kind of Sorrow. It fits. I worked my butt off all my life, and I chased that dollar like DJ did. And now I have to sit on the couch and watch what happens with the rest of my life. So I've accepted that, and DJ knew that. I was content with it because I worked my butt off all my life so hard. But it's still hard. So I'm going to do the We've Been Forgotten Fund and Benefit for my granddaughter and Riker and his older stepsister. And I have buku apologies. The people in Luther from years ago when it first happened, all this time, the people in Moline, all the bank tellers, they've been terrified. My apologies. DJ had obviously an addiction that we didn't know about, and there was no cure for it, and we didn't see it. And a lot of people have had their lives changed, some terribly, some dramatically, and there's some of us that it's been changed tragically. And it all comes down to the almighty dollar and the rules of society and what you gotta do to survive nowadays. And so in order to understand and make sense of this whole mess, I have to free my mind somehow, and this is one way I'm going to do it. There are numerous officers that had to watch Officer Slot die. There are numerous officers that took DJ and Chris's life. They have to wake up every day, and they have to go to sleep every day, just like we do with the tragedy. They have to be dealing with it quite terribly too. My apologies go out to all the EMS workers, everyone that was tragically touched in a negative way by this event. And I am so terribly sorry, because the flags were flying in front of me, and because of my disability I couldn't get off the couch, and I feel that's a lot of the reason why I can take some of the blame. Plus, when I start telling the story, you'll know why I feel like I feel. And you may not get it in the very beginning, it may take you a while, but then you'll understand. So, this is most terrible. And I'm going to dedicate my segments from now on to the 3 children that have been left behind, telling my story. This is my story, nobody else's. And everybody else can say what they want, do what they want, and this is my story. And if it ever stops being broadcast, there's 3 reasons. 1 is my health, 2 is I couldn't pay the cable bill, and 3 is somebody doesn't want me saying what I got to say. So, I want to thank the Northside Community Church in Sparta. I want to quickly share this little story before I run out of tape time again. During DJ's viewing, a lady came and said that she had read the obituary and felt so bad for us she had to come and pay her condolences and share her feelings. And she was having coffee with her daughter, I believe, in the Sunday paper, I believe she said she was reading when she read it. And her daughter said, well, you don't have to go there, you don't have to do that. And the lady's name is Pam Deswan. She says, yes, I do. I feel I have to go let them people know that there are people out there that feel for them. When she came and she told me that, I thanked her and I told her, I said, that's how I felt when I went to apologize to the Walker Police Department, because I had people telling me I didn't have to do it. But I said, yes, I do. That's the way I was raised. I was raised to do things like that. I asked her if she would please go back and share my story with her church and ask for help, because we only had $80 when this tragedy happened, and people don't understand everything. They only know what's in the news. Let them know that we're good people. And DJ was good. He just made a bad decision, a bad thing. And she did. And there was another article that came up in the paper that I have to read because I feel it's necessary. And at the time, I cut it out and saved it in my wallet like I do all the other ones. And the day that Pam Deswan and Carol, I don't know her last name, but my wife works for her agency, they came from the church, and the church raised $1,000, and they gave it to us to help with our need, and a bunch of food so we could have a good Thanksgiving and everything, and we thanked them dearly for it. We still need to go and let our thoughts be known to the church, our thanks and everything. Well, she had mentioned her husband had written an article, and I said, well, I clip them all out. This was her husband Tom's article, and I didn't know at the time. It says, our community has recently experienced a horrible tragedy in regard to the killing of Officer Slott. Duty-bound officer laid to rest. Press, October 22nd. We wish in no way to diminish the event